Hey guys, Chris Zoupa here with the lovely people at Fundamental Changes. Just going to fix my little beanie. There we go, nice and straight. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my new book, Ultimate Shred Machine. It is out now. Something that I really wanted to chat to you guys about is the tapping thing. Now, my Ultimate Shred Machine book deals with shredding, sweeping, legato, and tapping. There's a bunch of exercises in each of those areas, and we also talk about some of the common problems that occur in all of those techniques, and just sort of tips, hacks, and tricks, and ways to get around them. So what I wanted to talk to you about is just the common problems that happen with the tapping technique, and then how I use it to sort of, be creative and express myself in an interesting fashion. Now, one of the common misconceptions about tapping, the first thing people think of is, the eruption thing, that one thing from Metallica, or that kind of Randy Rhoads Crazy Train kind of dealio as well. And I sort of wanted to throw some of those misconceptions out and say that the tapping technique can be very, very cool and very, very interesting when used appropriately. So what I quickly want to get out of the way is some common issues that occur with tapping. And I've noticed that this happens a lot when I'm teaching people tapping for the first time, is when we're sort of doing something really, really simple like this. Something as simple as that. We've got a firm hammer-on pull-off idea, and obviously good legato technique is important for your fretting hand. But when I'm adding a tap in, if the tap's coming away from the guitar, we don't get an extra attack. So if we do this, very, very quiet. We need to make sure that we're either digging in and pulling down or pulling up. And the same goes for, we start getting more fingers involved and doing extra silly things like that. So just making sure that we're pulling and we're digging. We'll talk a bit about that in the book as well. But just exactly the same as your legato. That we're pulling up or pulling down, whether you want to use your middle or your pointer. I'm a bit of a weirdo like Mark Knopfler in that I use my hands to play, so I generally play like this. And then when I want to do my tap, I do use my index finger, which is very, very strange. A lot of people will use their middle finger, but I prefer to use the index. So, as I was saying before, people tend to think of it as this kind of eruption thing, but I wanted to show you guys in a multiple stringed situation. Let's say we're dealing with something like the pentatonic. Let's say I'm in the key of A. One thing that I can do with it is really, really simple, is I can combine the first position of the A minor pentatonic with the second position of the A minor pentatonic, and they'll end up with kind of two parts happening at the same time. So I can tap all of those further notes of the second position, and I get something like this. It doesn't sound that interesting yet, but if I can do something like, I'm getting these kind of intervals. We don't generally play that way when we're fretting with a single hand. So doing something like this, or even this, which is using the end of position 3 of the A minor pentatonic, which is absolutely impossible to do with just a single fretting hand. So just having something as simple as this, or will create intervals that are otherwise impossible if you're just using your fretting hand. So other than just having something boring like this, we can mix up the order. We can even do sort of a cascading thing like this, with those backtracking things. Or another thing that I really like to do is I'll take a concept like this, that kind of triplet, Ace Frehley, Kirk Hammett, kind of Thin Lizzy sound, and then if you add a tap to that, you can get through it really, really fast, and because there's no tapping, there's no picking additive, and the tapping takes care of all of that. One thing that's really, really cool about that, if I do that again, so that's, for me, that's pretty fast. And if I go like this, I'm kind of at my max speed here. That doesn't sound very good. So this thing can be a really, really good tapping. The tapping thing can create a really, really fast shortcut when I'm trying to play pentatonics really, really quickly, or that's sort of what I'm hearing in my head, but I can't physically pick that or legato that in order. So with something like that, combining that tap technique with the Greg Howe hammer-ons from nowhere, you'll notice that when I change strings, I'm not actually picking that. So that's a really, really cool way to get around the pentatonic if we're using a tapping pentatonic thing. I'll just show you guys what that's going to sound like in a musical context. I might not necessarily do it that fast all the time. If I've got something like this, so obviously tastefully done and appropriately timed is sort of how I try to use my tapping, because I wouldn't say I'm a tappy guy. And the whole point of Ultimate Shred Machine is to get these big four techniques of shred, legato, sweeping, and tapping, get them all occurring equally or just to your taste, so that you're not a sweep guy or a shred guy or a tap guy. Just trying to incorporate the techniques as tastefully as possible. So that would be kind of the pentatonic approach to what we're doing. If we have a look at something like, we'll have a look at diatonics, and then we'll talk about arpeggios as well. So let's say I'm still in the key of A minor and I want to use the three note per string D Dorian shape, which would be this. Or I just want to use these guys, kind of like a B Locrian-y kind of thing. So let's say I've got something like this. Something like that. So every time I've got this sort of semitone, full tone thing, with something like this. One really, really cool thing is every time I see a shape that is either this, like a semitone, full tone, or full tone, semitone, the only time it kind of doesn't work is when I've got the double full tone. So if I see these shapes, I know that every time I come across that shape in any 3 note per string pattern, that a full tone or 2 frets above that is going to be in key. So if I do something like this, that's going to work in every single one of those. If I'm in the A minor shape, always 2 frets above, it's going to give me that. So if I can combine that with the pentatonic idea, this might not be very, very tasteful to do so much tapping, but if I've got something like this, that might be enough, just a little bit there. As I said before, it's sort of about incorporating it in a gentlemanly fashion without going too over the top with it. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was arpeggios. Now, obviously, you can go down the necrophagist route, which is this. Just doing a straight sweep and adding a tap to the top of that, which is cool sometimes, but as Marty Friedman would say, any monkey can do a trick, and it's kind of... it can get a little bit grating once you've got the technique down. You're like, hey everybody, look at this thing I can do. Especially with me when I'm playing that way in a very technical fashion and I'm having a little party and I'm giggling at myself, my wife will walk in and she's not a guitarist or even a musician. She'll be just like, babe, what are you doing? Play some Stevie, play some Jimmy. Something that makes sense on a musical level. So that sweep tapping gag can be a little bit grating. But one thing that I really, really like to do is use it in arpeggios. Not so much as the tap thing, but as sort of like a cascading triplet thing. So if I'm trying to do something like this, something like that, it's quite annoying to have to backtrack through that. And one thing that I found that's really, really interesting is that we can take 2 positions of, say, that A minor arpeggio, both of those for instance, and what I can do is I can tap all of that second position And what that means is that I can sort of have this triplet sounding thing like this, but that can occur with the arpeggio. So I can get something like this. Which I think is really cool as well. I'll try and use that in a musical context. So I didn't go overboard with it, but if you want to get that kind of sound, sometimes it is too difficult to have to do this. It's kind of a little bit too complicated to do, and the tapping thing just makes it a lot easier. I think the tapping concept can be used as a really interesting way to get far intervals, or just as a way to deal with things that are a little bit complicated and unnecessarily annoying on guitar due to its design. Another thing that I like to do is diminished arpeggios. I mean, who doesn't? They're pretty lovely. But the great thing about this is I can use that cascading arpeggio idea. I can do that, and all of the diminished shapes will be exactly the same. So if I've got something like this, which is just a diminished from the 10th and 7th fret, so like an F diminished or whatever, I can play just 3 frets up from that and do this arpeggio, and I can get that triplet feel instead of going that kind of thing. I can do that by doing the tap thing. I can even take it a little bit further. I could go all the way down to the 5th string and have something like this. So if I do that again, I can get quite a lengthy tap sequence with an arpeggio sound without it being too swept or too picked. So that can have a really, really cool sound to it as just sort of a cheeky shortcut without having to do too much picking or legato and those kind of things. So you can see plenty of that in my book, Ultimate Shred Machine, arpeggios, regular diatonics and pentatonics. Just really, really cool ways to get around the fretboard with tapping and not be too unnecessarily technical. Anyway, hope you guys have dug this. The lovely Simon D. Pratt has left some links in this chat. I also left some links in the description of this video as well, if you guys are keen. And feel free to check out my YouTube channel. I talk a lot about shredding. There's a bunch of guitar solos on there as well. I'll also be talking about upcoming books and other things on my YouTube. And I'll hopefully be back with the lovely people of Fundamental Changes in a month or so to talk to you more about the book and other new projects and other fun things that those wonderful gentlemen have on the cards. Hope you guys are doing well. Keep it shreddy. I'll see you soon.